Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Mesechet Avodah Zarah, and we are in the middle of Samech Dalit Amud Bet. We are in the middle of discussing the three questions that the Gemara asked as a quandary in our sugya, and the third and final one was a question whether or not a ger toshav could be mebatel avodah zarah. Today's Amud is being learned l'schut refuah shelema of Rachel Simcha bat Nahid, also being learned l'schut refuah shelema of Yasmin. I could find this. Yasmin bat Sarah, that should have refuah shelema as well. Amen. So we have the discussion of the Gemara. What is considered even a ger toshav? Ger toshav, translated, simply means a ger that is allowed to live, to be yoshev, to be moshav, toshav in Eretz Yisrael. We're not allowed to let of the Avodah Zarah living in Eretz Yisrael, but a ger toshav is fine. So what is ger toshav? So of course, the bare minimum of ger toshav would be a person that has accepted upon himself not to do Avodah Zarah, not to idol worship. That's simple. And the Gemara brings the three shitot of Tanaim, Rabbi Meir being the most lenient. He says it's a ger. Ger toshav is a goy that has accepted not to do Avodah Zarah. Period. He does all the other averot maybe, but Avodah Zarah, he is a monotheist in that sense of his life, that he believes in one God. So says the Gemara, Chachamim hold, Kol shekibel alav sheva mitzvot, shekiblu alehem bnei Noach. It's not sufficient merely to not do Avodah Zarah, but they have to accept upon themselves all the sheva mitzvot bnei Noach, all the Noahite laws. And says the Gemara, Acherim omrim, they are the most stringent, the Shita of Acherim, that they have accepted, ger toshav has accepted all of the mitzvot of the Torah aside from kashrut. Is ochel nevelot, he still lives and eats like a goy, but he has accepted all the other mitzvot. Lo ba'u lechlal ger toshav, ela ezu ger toshav say Acherim, ze ger ochel nevelot, shekibel alav lekayem kol mitzvot hamurot b'Torah. This is a ger that has accepted to do all of the mitzvot of the Torah aside from kashrut. It's still ochel nevelot. And that's ger toshav. And that, by the way, is pretty simple, that is at least what they don't keep. Because the Torah says, like, by the isur of nevela, don't eat nevela, lager asher bish'arecha titenenu v'achala. You give it to ger asher bish'arecha, the ger that lives with you in your domain, which is a ger toshav, say Chazal, and you give the nevelot to him. So that's simple in the pasuk, that the very least that they don't keep is ochel nevelot, that they do eat nevelot. That's already in the Chumash. So we know what they don't do, and we know what they do. The two ends of the spectrum, we know that they don't do Avodah Zarah, and we know that they eat terefot and nevelot. So hence the Shita of Rabbi Meir and Acherim, and then Chachamim is somewhere in the middle, that they have accepted not just the Isur of Avodah Zarah, but all the Noahite laws. So says the Gemara, and again, as we'll see later, a ger toshav has many halachot associated with them. You're hayav to be mechaye ger toshav, right? You have to see to it that they live, they're healthy. If they're in danger, you have to save them, right? We mentioned before that you have, even Choshen Mishpat wise, you have the halachot of biomot iten scharo, right? And so on and so forth. So it's important to know who is ger toshav, who is not. But for our purposes, the question was whether or not a ger toshav could be mebatel an avodah zarah. In other words, if you have two goyim, both of which do avodah zarah, and then one of them could be mebatel the avodah zarah of the other. That we know. The question is, how about if one of the goyim does not do Avodah Zarah? He has accepted to become a ger toshav. So he doesn't believe in Avodah Zarah. He certainly doesn't do Avodah Zarah. Can he also be mebatel? Can he nullify the Avodah Zarah of a different goy? That's the question. So the Gemara is going to go through a series of halachot about ger toshav. So Gemara and get to the bottom line of whether or not a
Is a converting process always ger toshav?
No, converting process is a completely different story. Depending on where in the process they are. Like the major difference is if they have accepted the mitzvot, they have done milah, but they haven't done tefillah. There's a lot of machloket about that, with a story attached to it from the early 1900s. But Rashul Salant and so on, but not for now necessarily, but that's a completely different thing. This is a person that's not necessarily planning to become a Jew, even though that there are those who say a ger toshav is only when within 12 months he's going to become a ger tzedek, right? We'll discuss that. In the upcoming pieces of the Gemara. But says the Gemara, Shamno yikeyeno. Also, another halacha by a ger toshav is that his shemen is like his wine. His oil has the halachot of his wine. Gemara says, what? Shamno kiyeno salchadatach. You think that the shemen is asur like the yayin? Shemen mika'ave nesech. Shemen becomes nesech. Yain nesech is asur ba'ana'ah. You cannot derive any benefit from yain nesech. So you want to think that shemen of a goy, of a ger toshav becomes asur ba'ana'ah like the wine? What sense does that make? Shemen is not nesech. The other way around. This is the Gemara. Yeno keshemno. The yayin of a ger toshav is like the shemen. You remember earlier on Daf Lamed Vav, we mentioned that initially it didn't stick, but initially there was a gezerah against the shemen of Ovdei Kochavim as well. Now we are familiar, of course, with bishul akum, that you can't have food cooked by a goy even if it's kosher ingredients. You cannot have the pat akum, right? The bread made by a goy. You can't have the yayin of akum, even if he's not using it for pouring it for Avodah Zarah. And we mentioned because the surah of shalakot and pat really bring you to intermingle, and that brings you to drink, and that brings you to intermarriage. So therefore, there was a gezerah initially on shemen, on the oil as well, and it's one of those things that never stuck. People were not able to do it, and therefore we don't have that necessarily nowadays. But in the initial halacha of shemen of a goy being asur, the Gemara says yeno keshimno. The wine of a ger toshav is like the shemen, just like the shemen, the yayin rather, is asur b'shtiya, mutar ba'ana. By shemen also would be asur b'achila, it would be asur to eat it, but mutar to benefit from it. And here is the key. We brought this whole thing for this few more words that we have here. V'nesh'ar kol davar harehu ke'oved kochavim. And for all the other things, the ger toshav is like a goy, a regular oved kochavim. For all the other halachot, he's like a regular oved kochavim. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, yeino yain nesech. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel deviates from the last piece of this braita, and he holds that the yain of the ger toshav also is like yain nesech, which is not just prohibited to drink, but it is also asur b'hana'ah, that you cannot derive any benefit from it. Ve'amrila, and there are those who say he deviated lehakel, meaning Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel was more lenient, and he said the yain of a ger toshav is mamash mutar, you could make a lachaim with him, it's mutar b'shetiyah, you could even drink it. And that's the shita of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, deviating from the braita. But the piece that we want to surgically take out of this braita is, the braita says black and white, clear, that for all the other halachot, a ger toshav is equal to an oved avodah zarah. And the Gemara says, that's exactly what I want, says the Gemara. Katani miha. It says clearly, "Ulishar kol davarav harehu kovet kochavim." That for all the other things, he's like a ovet kochavim. Lemay hilcheta. Why do you have to tell me that he's like a ovet kochavim for all the other things? Hare, he is a person that is not ovet kochavim. He accepted not to do avodah zarah. So why do you have to tell me for all the other things you're coming to add something? If you tell me that this goy and this goy, they have few differences, right? The yayin of this person is not asur ba'ana'ah. All the differences that we just said, right? So I would, of course, know that for all the other things, they're the same. So why do you have to tell me, go out of your way and say, for all the other things, they are the same? Of course, you're coming to add something. What is he coming to add? So Amar Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak, he loved them in battle. Isn't it coming to tell me that they have a leniency that was very powerful and very useful? That they could actually nullify the Avodah Zarah of another goy. This should be the addition that is coming to teach me that for all the other things, they're like a oved kochavim. And even for the kula that you could have in Avodat Kochavim, that an idol worshiper could nullify the idol of another guy, this guy also, even though that he doesn't believe in Avodah Zarah, he could still nullify the Avodah Zarah of a goy. Isn't that the halacha? Amar Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak, says Gemara, Rab Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, no, Lo liter reshut ulbatel reshut. He's coming to tell you another beneficial halacha, that he is like a goy, which is in the laws of Eruv. Now, a little preface. In laws of Eruv, of course, we have Reshut HaRabim, Reshut HaYachid. You can't carry from Reshut HaYachid to Reshut HaRabim. You can't carry from Reshut HaRabim to Reshut HaYachid. Right? Public and private domains are an issue on Shabbat, and you can't also carry in Reshut HaRabim 4 amot from one place to another. Right? You can't pick, if you see something on the street, you can't pick it up and move it 4 amot and put it down. That by itself would be a transgression midoraita as well. But then there are restrictions above this as well. In other words, imagine you have a chatzir. You have the way their housing was in the time of Chazal was every street had open courtyards to it. It was open to the street. You come from a street in the courtyard, and around the courtyard were houses different families lived in, rooms different families lived in. And you could have 10 families living in the same chatzir, in the same courtyard. So what is that? Midoraita, halachically speaking, that's a Reshut HaYachid. The entire thing is one big private domain. And you should be able to carry from one place to another within the chatzir, no problem. But there is a rabbinic isur that because the different reshuyot, the different domains of people within this one domain, you should do eruv. Right? You should do eruv chatzerot in order to be able to make it one unified domain. The way you do it is you bring some food, you put it in the middle from everyone participating in it, right? Everyone brings something to the eruv, and now this communal chatzer-wide food that you have is what brings the chatzer together. That is all one. Now, imagine if one person forgot to give something to the Eruv from before Shabbat, and comes Shabbat and say, oops, I forgot. Now what? The halacha is that he could be mebatel his reshut. Mebatel is, I nullify my reshut, and then now we're good to go, because now it belongs to all of you guys who participated in the Eruv. I have no domain for this Shabbat. It's hefker, and therefore it's still mutar to carry within the chatzir. So that is the difference over here. Whether a goy is like, if you have a goy in the chatzir, can he also be mevatel reshut? Chazal wanted us not to live with goyim, because again the pasuk says "Yitaramu b'goyim ve'ilmedu mima'asehim." When you live and mingle amongst the goyim, you learn from their culture. You don't want that to happen. You want it to be interactions with people who are like-minded, the hashkafa of Torah, people who are keeping the mitzvot. So it becomes a question for a goy, can't be in batel reshut. How about a Jew that is mumar, a Jew that doesn't keep anything, right? Can he be in batel reshut? Or do we make that also hard in order for people not to live with a Jew that does not keep mitzvot? Because again, the mindset is we don't want to mingle with people who are not keeping the mitzvot. It's a form of Chazal securing our life in Galut, right? That when you're living amongst people who may or may not be loyal to the Torah, when you don't have a Beit Din, you can't, it's not like the time of Beit HaMikdash that everyone was doing and everyone was keeping. So how do you exactly monitor the Jewish life to be kept in the proper path? This is one of the pushes that Chazal gave, that we don't want people to be living as a goy being their next door neighbor, or a meshumad, a Jew that became over the Avodah Zarah or is not keeping anything, become their neighbor. So that's the question. So says the Gemara, let's learn this together. Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Yisrael mumar meshamer Shabbato b'shuk mebatel reshut. If you have a Jew that it's mumar, doesn't keep mitzvot, but at least he's not mechalel Shabbat befarhesia. Outside, in front of the public eye, he keeps Shabbat. The Eliyahu Rabbah, for instance, writes, he says, if you have a Jew that drives to shul It doesn't say driving necessarily. He comes in front of the rabbi. In front of the rabbi, he's Shomer Shabbat, right? He's embarrassed from the rabbi, right? So he comes, he parks 2 blocks away, comes in front of the rabbi, he puts his black hat on, he's Shomer Shabbat in front of the rabbi. So says the Eliyah Rabbah, even that is not considered Mechal Shabbat B'Farasiyah because he has some busha still. The Gemara says, public. In Shuk Arabim, in Shuk, in public, he's Shomer Shabbat. Comes home, we don't really look what he's doing and how. He's not necessarily keeping the mitzvah. He's Israel Mumar. He's not from. But outside, he keeps Shabbat. So he's not Mechalel Shabbat B'Farasiyah, Mebatel Reshut. He could still be Mebatel Reshut that if he forgot to put food for Eruv, he could be Mebatel his Reshut, nullify his Reshut, and then everyone could carry. So still, it's easy to live with him. Chazal didn't make it that hard. But if he is Mechalel Shabbat B'Farasiyah, She'en Meshamel Shabbato B'Shuk, if he doesn't even keep Shabbat in the Shuk, in the public eye, then Ein Mebatel Reshut. Then he cannot be nullifying his Reshut on Shabbat. Now you know how hard that is to live with a person like that, because he could bust the whole carrying thing. Imagine you have 100 people living in a chatzir, all the kids want to carry, want to play on Shabbat afternoon, and nobody could carry. Why? Because this guy didn't put Eruv, because he doesn't believe in it, or whatever, and he can't even ask him to be Mebatel his Reshut. Doesn't work. So that pushes the community not to have people like that within their midst, and keeps a certain organic growth of a frum community, right? So it says the Gemara, Sha'amru, Yisrael noter reshut u'mebatel reshut. A Jew could give reshut and it could be mebatel reshut. U'be'oved kochavim ad sheyiskor. But a goy has to pay money. He has to rent. You have to rent from him, right? He can't just say, okay, I nullify my reshut. Doesn't work. You, the Jew, have to go rent from him his reshut, get permission from him. That these things become a massive deal when making eruv nowadays. It becomes something that you have to, of course, ask a question where you go to a hotel, a Pesach hotel. Can you carry on a Pesach hotel? Right? That's a hotel basically is a big chaser. Right? I have different rooms, right? It's just not a courtyard like this, but it's a different surah of the same thing. Do you have to make when you go for Shabbat to a hotel, do you have to do eruv chatzerot? Can you carry in the hallways of the hotel or not? These all become related questions to this very Gemara. It's a very modern day shaila. So says the Gemara. Maybe we'll get to discuss those, B'ezrat Hashem. But for now, it says the Gemara. Ketzat omer lo. How do you do this? Omer lo reshuti knuya lecha, reshuti mebutelet lecha. Keneve salich lizkot. So this is, the Gemara says you could go rent from him a reshut and make an acquirement, and then you're good to go. So this is I realize we are out of time, but Zat Hashem will pick this up in the next day, which really finishes this halacha and goes to another fascinating discussion in the Gemara as well, but Zat Hashem for the days to come. Chazak u'Baruch.